Ladies and gentlemen, from the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace and Justice, Deacon Gerald Celente.
Hello, this is Deacon Celente of the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace and Justice. And I had the great honor this past weekend to meet with Van Morrison. Yep, brown-eyed girl, amen and a women. And he wanted to meet me. And I had the pleasure of meeting him at the Forest Hills Stadium, where he was about to do a great concert. And Tom Jones was before him. So we spoke for a while before he went on. And here's a photo of me, him, and John Plantania, who is his guitarist. And boy, you should have seen these people play. These are all they're not young cats. And they just kept going, brought down the house. What we were talking about was how they've robbed us of our freedom. And again, I'm the deacon of the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace, and Justice. And in the Trends Journal, 2 years prior, we wrote an article. And the headline read, Van Morrison on tune with Celente. This is September 22nd, 2020. So the COVID war began in January of 2020. Chinese Lunar New Year, the year of the rat, when they launched the war. And in talking about freedom, when they launched the war, they cut back the freedom that was going on in Hong Kong in 2019. And I used to be on Hong Kong TV during 2019 as the protests were going on, and over 1 million people were taking to the streets in Hong Kong to protest China's overtaking them. And that's a city of only 7.5 million people. You can't get 1 million people in America to go out and protest about anything. But they had over 1 million because they didn't want to be put under the servitude of China. So when China launched the COVID war, they locked down Hong Kong, passed the Security Act, and took away their freedom. And then one country after another followed Hong Kong. Italy was the first, robbing people of their freedom and sucking joy out of life. The COVID war, which has destroyed the lives and livelihoods of billions of people, destroyed. And of course, now they're blaming it, quote, on the pandemic. This happened because of the pandemic. No, it didn't happen because of the pandemic. It happened because of the politicians. So going back to Van Morrison, he was one of the few artists that came out in protest of these dictators that people call prime ministers and presidents and chancellors and mayors and governors, politicians. Not the pandemic destroyed the lives with their lockdowns and their draconian demonic mandates that they imposed upon we the people. So Van Morrison, as with the deacon, have been criticized, chastised for speaking out against the robbing of our freedom, to fight the COVID war that wasn't based on science, but political science. Stand 6 feet apart. When you're in an airplane, you can eat and drink without the mask on, but put the mask on after you eat and drink, because, of course, the virus knows that you stopped eating and drinking. And 6 feet apart, outside, wind only blows in one direction, stops exactly 6 feet. Making up moronic stuff, ignorant moronic mandates. So here's the article that was written in the Trends Journal, the only magazine in the world that gives you history before it happens. Van Morrison on Trend with Salenti. Back in March, when New York State was locked down by Governor Andrew Cuomo, Gerald Salenti was inspired to write 2 anti-lockdown songs. Here are some of the lyrics. The first one was, How am I gonna? How am I gonna pay my rent? How am I gonna cut your hair? How am I gonna serve you food when they won't allow you? And of course, it went on. The other one was, Don't mask me. Don't mask me. I'm born to be free. Not a coward, not a thief. Nothing to hide. You can see me. Don't mask me. So they go on to say that Salenti had someone to put a band together to begin producing the songs, but the lockdowns made it impossible to rent a studio, etc. Van Morrison to the rescue. And now, remember, this is September 22nd, this was written, 2020, 2 years ago. And now, as reported by BBC, Van Morrison, the famed singer behind Brown Eyed Girl, has gone back to the studio to accuse the British government of enslaving the population with its strict coronavirus mandates, calling the UK government, quote, fascist bullies disturbing our peace. That's right. Peace and freedom. The BBC reported Morrison wrote 3 songs that include the lyric, quote, no more taking of our freedom and our God-given rights, pretending it's for our safety when it's really to enslave. Amen and amen. That's exactly what they've done. They've enslaved us. They've ruined our lives and forced us to get vaccinated with a vaccination that people like Pierre Trudeau, the daddy's boy up there in Canada playing their prime minister, president, whatever, gets the shots and gets the virus. Obama gets the shots and gets the virus. Fauci gets the shots and gets the virus. Biden gets the shots and gets the virus. But all of us who haven't gotten the shots and haven't gotten the virus, we're ignored. The vaccine that they sold as being 95% efficacy rate and only need 2 shots. And now it's a shot every year. Oh, the variants are coming. Going on to the article. Calling out the cast of, quote, celebrities telling us what we're supposed to feel, Morrison said they are being used as mouthpieces for the government to sell the people what they are peddling. He said it is becoming rare nowadays to find an artist who is not afraid to speak out against what is being widely accepted as groupthink. This is what we've said in the Trends Journal a long time ago. Where were the artists? All those Crosby, Stills, Nashes, and Youngs that wrote their songs for peace and freedom, attacked all of those who wouldn't get a vaccination. The reason they did those songs was during the Vietnam War, because people were getting drafted back then. After the draft ended, so too did the protests. They're only concerned about themselves, but not Van Morrison. He's concerned about we the people, as is the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace, and Justice. In tune with what Gerald Salenti and the Trends Journal have been advising for decades, think for yourself, Morrison said his songs are not about telling people what to do or think. It's about freedom of choice. People have the right to think for themselves, end quote. It's about freedom of choice. That's what he said. It's a quote. People have the right to think for themselves. No longer do you have the right to think for yourself, not in what they call democracies, as these phony democracies go after countries like Russia, who they say aren't democratic. You are taken off the air. You're blacklisted on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, across the spectrum for misinformation, for conspiracy theories. You are not allowed to think for yourself anymore. You must believe what the politicians tell you to do. And that's what Van Morrison's fighting against. And for this, he was attacked. The Irish Post ran an article that called the legendary singer to be stripped of the Freedom of Belfast Award because of his new songs. Emmett McDonough Brown, a Belfast City Council, said Morrison received the honor in 2013, and it's the highest honor that the city can bestow. But, quote, his most recent lyrics undermine the guidance in place to protect our lives and are ignorant of established science as we grapple with COVID-19. So I've asked the Belfast City Council to consider revoking it. Listen to the arrogance and ignorance of this person who writes and says, I should say, that people are ignorant of establishment science. Establishment, you mean the drug dealers, big pharma? Not a word was ever said since January 2020, when the COVID war began, about natural healing, about our God-given rights, and to embrace nature and what it offers us to bring our health stronger and better. Not a word. Only listening to the establishment. The words are right here. The nerve of these people to condemn other countries about not being democracies when they've robbed us of our democratic rights. And it goes on. His most Harmeet Dillon, an influential California Republican and lawyer, tweeted, it is possible to love Van Morrison more? I don't know right now. Robert Swan, Northern Ireland's health minister, called the new songs from Morrison dangerous. I don't know where he gets his facts. Well, I can tell you where he got his facts. Outside the establishment that they banned people to listen to, like Dr. Joseph Mercola and others that have provided the facts that are contrary to the establishment. Again, these are hypocrites. They talk about democracy. I know where the emotions are on this, but I will say that that sort of messaging is dangerous. We go on to write, the new tracks are titled Born to Be Free. As I walked out, and no more lockdowns. Quote, Morrison makes it clear in his new songs how unhappy he is with the way the government has taken away personal freedoms. A statement said on his website announcing the release, according to Agency France Presse. The legendary singer called on the music industry to stand with him because concerts where social distancing is mandated are not financially feasible for the artist or the venues. Morrison goes on to claim that scientists are essentially making up, quote, crooked facts, end quote, in order for government officials to justify their mandates. Amen and amen. That's exactly what happened. And it's gone. Out of the news. How they've lied to us. and how people obeyed these mandates and attacked all those who would not follow their orders. You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations. That's what President Joe Biden sold to people. He got the vaccinations and he got COVID. Dr. Anthony Fauci said when they are vaccinated, they can feel safe. They're not going to get infected. Those are quotes from them. Why aren't these people being called out for their lives? Both of them got fully vaccinated and fully infected. Yep. If you've done the right thing and gotten vaccinated, you deserve the freedom to be safe from COVID-19. That was Justin Trudeau, who got fully vaccinated and got fully COVID. And again, a number of these people twice. And then, this is from the Wall Street Journal. COVID's still a leading killer, especially among seniors. That's right. They go on to say most are older people and many have underlying health conditions and compromised immune systems. They go on to note roughly 85% of the people who died from COVID-19 through mid-August this summer were 65 years or older, according to the Wall Street Journal analysis of death certificates. They go on to say the rate is similar to 2020, peaks. They go on also to note that the article from research from the Advent Health Count in Florida counted 24 deaths related to COVID-19. Age was the biggest factor. All but one COVID-19 patient who died had serious health problems, such as diabetes, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, heart failure, and obesity. There you have it. And they're forcing young kids to get vaccinated when they're not getting the virus or dying from it. And if they do get it, it's the flu, it's sick. You get ill, like we all do. And then now there's the Ukraine war, the COVID war to Ukraine war to World War III. And it's ramping up. The United States pledges new $600 million weapon package for Ukraine. That's this past Thursday. They keep ramping up the war and selling hate, fear, and hysteria. An article in the New York Times this past Monday. Stunned Moscow admits to losing most of Kharkiv, however you pronounce the name in Ukraine. Retreat, dense image of mighty Putin. How come the New York Times did not write articles that stunned Washington admits losing Afghan war, or stunned Washington admits to losing Iraq war? And how come they didn't have the subhead, retreat, dense image of mighty Bush or mighty Obama or the other mighty murderers? They're only selling fear, hate, and hysteria to Russia. when America is the leading killer in wars since World War II around the globe. And they keep ramping up the war and ramping up the hatred. Yet there's no blowback. Those of us who talk about peace and freedom and justice are demeaned and banned. We had the Freedom, Peace, and Justice rally on July 23rd. And thanks to all the donations that so many people generously gave, had top speakers, Judge Andrew Napolitano, Scott Ritter, Gary Null, Phil Giraldi, and myself. And not a word in the media about peace. Nope, didn't cover it at all, not even the local newspapers. Covered stupid junk. This war keeps heating up. They keep sending more weapons of death. If the United States and NATO didn't support this war would have been over a long time ago. And again, people have no idea why this happened. Here it was in the Trends Journal, 2014, when the United States launched a coup against Viktor Yanukovych, the democratically elected president of Ukraine. And all the details following. People have no idea. They know who the leading teams are in the sports that they love, but don't have any idea about the facts. We're totally against Russia's invasion. And we're totally against the United States and NATO having sparked the flames for World War III. If we don't unite for freedom, peace, and justice, we are going to die in war. I read to you what we wrote about what Van Morrison was saying. One of the few artists coming out against being forced to be vaccinated, against forced to be locked into your home, forced to lock down your business. All made up demonic mandates. Draconian. Not backed by scientific fact, but only dictatorial political will. And that's the path we're on. So please do what you can, in any way you can, to support freedom, peace, and justice. Thank you.